Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission to order, please. Would you please stand with me? I'll lead the prayer. Rich, you lead the pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the beauty of this day, Heavenly Father, the warmth. And we thank you for all our days, Heavenly Father. And we thank you that we can come here tonight and we can do the business of our county. We pray that you be with us. Pray we'll be fair and just in everything we do. And just pray that you'll be with us through all this meeting. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Call roll, please, ma'am.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Richie Boland. Here. Veronica Buchanan. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Cush. Here. Jeff Phillips. Here. Pettis Reed. Here. Steve Sandlin. Here. Mike Vaught. Here. Vincent Windrow. Craig Lynch.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right. You have before you the Codes Department. David, do you have anything?
No, sir. The Building Codes Department report's on the tables, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. If you have any questions, you can look over that. Items withdrawn or deferred. The M. Lee Barrett rezoning conditional use permit. I believe that's been deferred. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has been, just so the Planning Commission understands what the situation is. You'll recall we were going to take this up, or we did take this up a few months back, but the owner wasn't present. Since that time, the tenant that the owner had at that building has vacated the property, so right now it's not being used for anything. So at this point, I think the owner's just kind of take another look at his plans for that property. But as of right now, there's no tenant on the property. So the issues that they were trying to address no longer exist. So.
Okay. If there's anyone here for that, we will not be looking at that tonight. M. Lee Barrett, it's been deferred. Subdivision waiver request, Gwynn Park, off-site soils waiver.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There's a piece of property located at the end of Delbridge Road, east of Manchester Highway. The existing tract is about 17 acres in size, and there is a reduced copy of the proposed plat in your agenda packets for your review. The applicant's proposing to plat a lot of 1.83 acres, which leaves a little over 15 acres remaining on the parent tract. While there is sufficient area on the property they're wanting to create for a primary soil site, there's not enough for a duplicate area. So they did find sufficient soils area on the remaining 15 acres. So what they are asking for is a waiver from that provision in the subdivision regulations, which requires all the soil sites to be on the property. You can see on the proposed plat that they have, it's a fairly sizable area, not too far from the existing property. But anyway, like I said, enough soils on the property for a primary site, but not enough for a duplicate. So that's really all they're asking for is a waiver for the duplicate site. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, questions? Do you have a motion? Do you have a second? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no? No, one no. Motion carries. All right, I need to, we've got Jerry B. Robinson and Robert G. Robinson. We need to suspend the rules. Is that correct, Doug?
Yes, we just need a motion to suspend the rules to consider this plat.
Have a motion to suspend the rules to look at the Robinsons. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no? Okay, Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you can see from the plat on your tables, this is a piece of property located at the intersection of John Bragg Highway and Coleman Road. As you probably recognize this property, this is the property that was considered just a couple months ago regarding the Dollar General over here on Coleman Road. The lot where the Dollar General will be on is Lot 3. The other two lots will remain R15, single-family lots. This plat was submitted for our approval. It falls under our minor plat category because it's 3 lots. However, we cannot administratively approve anything greater than 2. So that's why this is coming before you today. We have done our review on this, and the engineer has addressed our comments, and it appears to be in good order. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions, Dale, do you have any comments on it? Any questions on this? Everything's in order?
Yes, sir. Well, that piece of the track 3, the 70 feet is because of the commercial zone, the services zone. It's required to have a 70-foot front setback.
Okay. Do you have a motion? Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, Bill McDowell, rezoning and conditional use permit. Elizabeth?
Thank you. This application is located on Highway 99. It's approximately 9.5 acres in size. It is currently R15 with a requested zoning to services, and there's a list of the conditional use permits requested for the site. And in front of you, you'll find a booklet submitted by the applicant with some details about the site. He's proposing to build a 10,000 square foot commercial building that would be used for general retail, office space, and a maintenance shop. If you flip to the packet, you'll see he's proposing to use a masonry front material on the front facade and then metal on the sides and the rear, and also planning on using landscaping and screening to enhance the appearance of the site. Now, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on January 3rd of this year. You actually, in front of you, will find a letter from one of the residents who attended that meeting in favor of the application. He was unable to be here, so wrote a letter. The surrounding property is zoned R15 and is currently vacant, as you can see from the aerial here. The one issue is that the site, CUD has informed us, will not support a fire hydrant, so this would have to seek variance approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals if it was approved today. Here's a closer look at the site plan, and then just look at the surrounding property, of course, Highway 99. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Elizabeth, how close is the nearest fire hydrant?
I believe there is a fire hydrant on Low Lane somewhere. There's a 6-inch water line back there, but it's outside of the 1,000 feet that required. 500 feet, I'm sorry, that is required for a fire hydrant. 1,000 feet, I'm sorry, I was right the first time, 1,000 feet. Apologize. And you can see in the packet the applicant did originally propose to extend the water line from Low Lane to the property and place a fire hydrant on their site. However, the hydraulics in the area, it's too far away from the water tower, there's just not the pressure to support it.
Okay, other questions? Yes, sir, Rich.
We are just looking at one building, that's all they're going to do here?
Right, the 10,000 square foot site plan they've...
Okay, what is the DBST on the road that's on page 4? On the drive, is that double street?
I'm not... It's right here. Oh, he's just referring to the type of...
It's basically asphalt.
Asphalt, concrete.
Okay, the other questions? Yes, Dave.
Is it going to be sprinkled?
That's not part of the application now. You could require that. as part of your
I
approval.
think the commissioner here brought up a good question. With that proper fire protection, I would assume with the commercial building within a reasonable, distance, and depending on what this building's going to be, then whether it be sprinkled or not.
The applicant is present. That was not part of their original proposal. Now, at first, of course, they thought that they'd be able to support a fire hydrant there. So, the situation has changed, so they may be willing to entertain that.
So they don't have a use on it right now?
They have
They do.
identified. Go ahead.
Yes, they do. If you look at the last page of the booklet, there's several uses that they have listed as possibilities. My understanding is they are intending on using it as a maintenance shop with office and possibly some retail in the front.
Okay, Pettis?
Yeah, I noticed that we have usages there. There's several different usages. In fact, there's quite a few that are listed there. And I know that right now they're talking about using it just for storage of equipment and for office space once they decide what they're going to use it for. Is that not a whole lot of different usages that are be allowed there?
Well, Mr. Reed, the Planning Commission, I think, and this is kind of my impression at least, is kind of evolved as far as looking at the type of uses that a building might have if a particular use that's proposed doesn't pan out in the first attempt of it. We would see applications sometimes at the Planning Commission where a building would have a specific use, say of a furniture store, let's use that as an example, and the furniture store doesn't pan out, so they have to come back through to be more of a variety store. I mean, really, when it comes right down to it, neither one really is going to have much impact. You know, if it's going to be another furniture store, it's going to be a variety store. You know, the requirements, those kind of things as far as parking and the impact to the area probably aren't going to be much different. So I think the Planning Commission's over time has begun to feel a little more comfortable allowing a little larger range of uses for the conditional use permits, just to cut down on the amount of time that needs to be spent by applicants to come through, and also just really just I think the Planning Commission just realizes that the review of an application like that really is almost it just makes sense to allow them to be able to have a few more uses than just maybe one or two. It just gives a little more flexibility to the applicants. So.
Okay. Other questions? Well.
What about the commissioner in the district? Has there been any word if the commissioners in support of this or not? And besides that, has there been any, besides the letters, have there been any phone calls, pro or con, and if so, how many?
I've only received a couple of phone calls about this application. One resulted in a letter, which was very favorable. One was just questions, wondering what was going there. So I have not heard anyone in opposition at this time, and I also have not heard from Ms. Jones.
Mm-hmm.
If
I have not. I do believe that she was at the neighborhood meeting, and Mr. Reed is nodding his head that was the case. But so I haven't. Other than that, I haven't heard anything else from Ms. Jones on that.
Well, I've been a proponent of several years of making these lists a little longer instead of exactly what you just talked to Mr. Reed about one use that's come back. But I don't know. There's a lot of difference in an office and a convenience sales and service. I think convenience sales services is just a convenience store, is it not? I mean, that may be a little leap farther than I'm comfortable with. You know, you can have an office storage thing, but if you've got a on the run or something like that out there, then that's, we don't have hours, as I see here. We don't, that goes from something being 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, to something being as much as 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is a long way from my district that I represent as a county commissioner, but I would love to hear from the commissioner in that area, but it's pretty wide open right now. They could get approval for this and have a beer store there tomorrow, or very shortly thereafter, So.
Well, there was a reasoning that I was making that question. I live out there, and there's a lot of people that I know out there, and there's already a lot of attempts out there to make that to be a very nice area, and I can see the individual here has put a lot of effort into his proposal and the facility he's going to do that, and that's why I was questioning some of these usages right there. There's a lot of difference between the different types of usages that have been put on here. But I know there are some residential areas out that area, fairly close to where this is, that they've done a real nice job, as well as some businesses that have done the same thing. So that's the reason for the questioning.
No, it's a fair question. So,
Mike.
Pettis, did you attend the meeting? And if you did, could you give us some feedback from it?
No, I was not contacted on this meeting.
I don't believe so, but I saw that they did have that. They put that ability in there, and just and this is kind of maybe beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But as we've been looking at our update to our zoning regs, I think that's something that we're going to look at, the ability of business to have a living unit inside where the owner or the leasee of the business can actually can live in the business as well, in order to eliminate the need for something like that. Just more of an FYI than anything.
Okay, any other question? Well,
I've got a feeling when we redo our zoning regulation, we're going to at least look at coming up with some zones similar to what the city of Murfreesboro's got: commercial fringe, commercial highway. There's some in between.
May not be named the same,
but
but
something
same
similar.
concept.
But I would think that a commercial fringe, which would allow an insurance office or a retail shop during the week, is probably not going to allow a convenience store that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Would not a convenience store being a more aggressive zoning than typically than a dentist office or something like that?
Yeah, well, actually, and I'm going to kind of speak here, and Mr. Robert Lewis from the city, he'll reel me in if I start going a little too far out here from my memory of what Murfreesboro zoning was like. Convenience markets were actually permitted in their commercial local district as well, which is kind of their least intense commercial zone, but only up to a certain square footage. If I remember right, it was 5,000 square feet. Commercial fringe didn't really have that limitation. Commercial fringe allowed heavier intensity commercial uses, but didn't allow things like car dealerships, auto repair, those kind of things. That's what the commercial highway zone really was for. So, I mean, the commercial local, the whole idea behind that, and the zone that we would look at, maybe something like a neighborhood commercial zone, commercial neighborhood, something like that, would anticipate, your smaller scale commercial uses, even maybe a convenience market, something that's more tailored to the local area, not necessarily like a larger retail outlet or something like that that would generate traffic from a wider area. So.
Okay, other questions before we open it? Yes, ma'am.
Doug, I have one more question relates back to the fire protection, and I guess we're all kind of looking at the same thing. As I look at the uses, I'm thinking about when you've got uses where you've got a lot of people in there, you might have a lot of people going in, not realizing that they're not under any sort of fire protection, where versus if it's an office, it's easier to get one or two people out than it is to get a large number of people out. So just from a planning standpoint, weigh in on this in terms of the fire protection. I don't know that I necessarily want to burden this, developer with having to sprinkle his building, but I don't know that I don't need to, because again, I don't know what he's going to use it for. So I'm a little uncomfortable about not knowing the use before we decide about the fire hydrant issue at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, and I think when the applicant speaks, he may be able to shed some light a little more onto the usage. But just to answer your question, of course, the lot is currently regardless of what this property is used for, it's going to have the same constraints as far as fire protection is concerned. That being said, it might be something that you want to do to look at possibly the intensity of what's going to be there. Something like you said, it's a little easier to get people out as opposed to, it's one thing to have an assembly use there. It's another thing to have just a small office use, or maybe even like a warehouse or storage type use. I'm just throwing those out there for examples. Looking at the sprinkler option, that may be something that, in absence of the fire protection, that may be something that the Planning Commission would like to consider, is the fact that, while there may not be service there for a fire hydrant, they may have adequate pressure to have the sprinkler system, which gives them something, at least, that currently would not be there, if not conditioned to be there. A lot of the different, depending on the use, they may not be required to sprinkle. That would be a building codes issue. But generally speaking, yeah, it's a concern that we share. When we at first thought that, there was going to be adequate fire protection with the fire hydrant there, we didn't have too much concern. But then we found out that the line couldn't even support it, even if they extended it down to the property. That did cause us concern. So that's the big reason we made note of it. So.
David, along that same line, is there anything between a hydrant and being sprinkled? Are there from a building code standpoint? Are there other options?
Of course, when the application is submitted for the building to be built, we would have to consider the use, what the construction of that building is, and all of the occupancy loads, egress, emergency egress, and fire protection for the use at that time. We would not allow them to do an assembly or a certain type of business in there without the proper protection or the proper construction types for containing that area from other areas of the building or the entire building.
So they can do it with firewalls or something along
That's
those
correct.
lines, is what you're thinking?
They can
Okay.
separate the space down, maintain that use in certain areas, things of that nature. But could require a sprinkler system, according on what the use would be, and in that way, we would not allow them to advance into that use without proper protection.
Is that something that we would need to require here, or that's part of what you impose from a building code standpoint?
It's building code. It would be on the plan review on the use of the building and then final inspection.
Okay. Any other questions before we open it up to public hearing? Okay, we'll open it up to a public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Brick Murphy of the law firm of Murphy & Murphy. My firm represents the applicant. I appreciate y'all coming out tonight. I know this is not the most romantic way to spend your Valentine's Day. I know zoning is not necessarily a heartthrob kind of thing, but I really appreciate y'all being here. I represent the applicant, Bill McDowell, and he owns the 9.56 acres, which are on Highway 99 in Salem Pike. Mr. McDowell is requesting to be the property be rezoned, obviously, from residential to commercial. You've got a copy of the pattern book, which Jamie Reed and his firm SEC prepared. Mr. Reed will walk y'all through the specifics of it, but I want to talk a little bit about our efforts with the neighbors, and so y'all understand that we've sought their input as well as the commissioner out there. On December 28th, I sent a letter out to 11 of the closest property owners requesting that they come to a neighborhood meeting and asking for their input. We held a neighborhood meeting at my office on January 3rd. 9 of the 11 property owners I sent letters out to came, so it was well attended. Tiffany Jones, the county commissioner out there, came to the meeting. And we also had a meeting with her before the neighborhood meeting to discuss the application with her and talk about her concerns, talk about the proposed usage and the plans Mr. McDowell has for the property. After the neighborhood meeting, I sent out a follow-up letter with a rendering of the building. I also fielded quite a few phone calls with additional follow-up questions. And Jamie Reed, the engineer for the property, called every property owner that we sent notices out to and tried to meet with them. Now, some people were busy and we couldn't meet with them, but we made an effort to sit down one-on-one at least once with everybody. Now, sometimes that's not possible, but we tried to do that, and I answered questions over the phone as well. All in all, I think the response from the neighbors was positive. Jeff King, who owns the property that adjoins this property on the north and the west, it's kind of a upside-down L. So he owns 2 of the 3 property lines that are not a public road, sent the letter in support. He had lots of specific questions. He's in the his company puts in cell phone towers, so he had a lot of specific questions for Jamie, which I couldn't answer as a lawyer. But he's been very supportive. Some highlights of the plan are the facade in the front is going to be primarily masonry or brick. The lot currently is heavily wooded. The applicant intends to keep the front and side, or excuse me, the back and side property lines 15-foot buffer of trees, which is a good buffer both distance-wise and foliage-wise. Y'all had some specific questions about the fire hydrant. The intent was to put one in, but obviously there's a flows problem, which Jamie can talk a little bit more specifically about. But if we get passage tonight, we're willing to commit to putting the fire hydrant in as soon as we can. As soon as CUD has sufficient flow there, Mr. McDowell will commit to putting the fire hydrant in immediately. It can't be put in now because we don't have the flow. And he'll commit to putting firewalls in now. So anything that's constructed, he'll have firewalls. In terms of the uses, he's just looking for some flexibility. We think that those lists of uses are your neighborhood kind of commercial, not the kind of thing that produces too much in the way of traffic. And from a outside looking in kind of standpoint, we feel like the difference between one use versus another use isn't going to be all that much of an impact different-wise on the neighbors, given the size of the site, the buffering we're committing to, and the other restrictions that we've agreed to in the plan. The applicant, Bill McDowell, is here, and Jamie Reed with SEC is going to walk y'all through the specifics of the plan. And if there's any questions y'all have at the end for me, Mr. McDowell, or Jamie, we'll be here to answer any of those that you may have. I appreciate your time.
Okay, does anyone have a question? Mr. Murphy? Okay, thank you, sir. Jamie?
Good afternoon, evening, everybody. My name is Jamie Reed with SEC, and I'd like to reiterate some of the stuff that Elizabeth and Brick went over through this booklet. I'll kind of start with page 1, flip through it real quick, and then we'll get to some questions. But this property is currently Lot 4 of the Mary Holton Estate property. We're looking at rezoning it from R15 to commercial services. The site is currently located just south of the Rockville Elementary and Middle Schools. The commercial zoning services is being requested in order to guarantee the quality of development that is desired, as well as to restrict the uses to minimize the effect of the neighborhood residents. Sheet number 2 kind of gives you a view of Elizabeth's. Looked a little better than these. I took these pictures when it was snow on different. They got sites north, south, and then into the property. Sheet 3, if you look at it, is an aerial view of the property, and as you can see, it's heavily treed on basically the entire site, other than the existing entrance coming into the site and some of the frontage out front. Sheet 4 is the proposed site that we're looking at adding. It's approximately 10,080 square feet. We're going to have a concrete paved front entrance with a parking lot. We're going to utilize the existing entrance onto Highway 99 with asphalt paving. The front of the building will be brick facade. There'll be no garage door openings up front, just be a single walk-in door with windows up in front. The garage doors are for vehicles to drive through will only be on the sides. The facade from the front will be brick, and also we'll have a landscaping buffer between the sidewalk and the building to separate some of the facade. The brick wall screen on the right side of the building will also screen the HVAC pads and anything that's on the right side. We've also placed the dumpster to the rear of the building, so you won't see that as you drive by, and it's also going to be screened, required to be screened. Go to sheet 5, and there's some additional site characteristics. All the parking has been designed to be located at least 10 feet from the public right-of-ways and property lines. In addition, adequate room for foundation plantings at the entrance of the building has been provided to help soften the building. The site is proposed to have one access point onto Highway 99, as it currently has got one. Now we're just going to utilize that existing location. Sheet number 6 shows some additional site characteristics. The site, we utilize the septic fields for the sewer service. This is what's going to dictate the what type of facilities we're going to place out there. We're not going to be able to place a restaurant, anything large out there. There's a septic site that can basically utilize one residential household. So what we're going to end up putting out there will be a low impact as far as water and sewer service type. That's what's going to limit your allowable uses due to those constraints. Any and all lighting on the site will be required to have no more than one candle foot candles at the property line. All site utilities will be underground. All mechanical equipment is to be screened. The proposed setbacks are front 80, side 10, rear 20. And like Brick said, we're going to maintain a 15-foot buffer on the west, north, and east sides of the property. Sheet number 7 is a good example. That picture on the top of the page is a good example of what Mr. McDowell is going to place on the site, except for the garage door that's in that front view right there. It's going to be all brick with windows, landscaping, concrete parking lot out front. And of course, his will have screening for the HVAC pads and stuff like that on the right side. Have a little screen wall and stuff so you won't see it from the road.
Jamie, can we go back to number 6?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That proposed water line extension looks like it's coming off a low lane
It
right there.
currently is. Yes, sir. We can go ahead and start talking about the water line. I've met with Larry and Larry's engineer, Jimmy Haley, and the crew over at CUD about 3 weeks ago. They've ran hydraulic calcs and stuff to see if they could get a fire hydrant to our site. I've proposed a fire hydrant from day one. They're not opposed to putting a fire hydrant there because we know that there's not one nearby. Well, I've got this information. I figured there was going to be water along Highway 99, but there wasn't. The only water location is along Low Road, and when this tract of land was subdivided, it was subdivided with an easement going, a 20-foot easement coming off of Low Road going south and serving that property. Well, at the time, that's how I showed this fire hydrant there, along with getting their water service to the site. Well, during that time, CUD ran the flows and stuff. They cannot provide adequate pressure for a fire hydrant. So we've removed the fire hydrant from coming from that site, but what CUD does have proposed, and what time it may be, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, I have no idea. They've got a large water line along Highway 99. Now, what we're proposing is to have, at that time, Mr. McDowell will place a fire hydrant right out in front of his property, pay to have it done when that water line gets there, when they can have adequate fire protection and fire pressure, pressure issues there now. That's kind of where we're at on that. And of course, they're only getting
they're getting the water supply then from
Low Road.
Low Road.
Just their domestic, not fire protection.
Right.
Just their water
Just
service.
their supply.
Yep.
So there's no water out in front
There's
of
not any water out front on Highway 99. It loops around Low Road and was it Windrow Road? Loops around. There's a water line that loops around, but nothing on Highway 99 at this time. But they've got in their plans, their major plans, water line expansion plans, to have that water line. It's kind of what I proposed at the time to place, and they're agreeing to do that. They're not trying not to put a fire hydrant or asking for a fire hydrant waiver. They're wanting to put one in. There's not pressure. Okay, back to page number 7. The maximum height for any building that's built out there will be 35 feet. The building entryways are to be well defined and easily identifiable. Soft uplighting or downlighting may be used to accent the building features at night, and primary materials of the buildings to be masonry for front elevations. Sheet number 8 kind of shows you some proposed exteriors for the front. You've got the brick or the stone, any type of masonry materials, and the sides will be of metal. Sheet number 9 is the proposed landscaping. Like I said earlier, they're wanting to still utilize the existing buffer on all sides of their tract to keep the trees buffered from each other, but also they're wanting to conform to the latest county's landscaping ordinance. They're willing to put in foundation plantings that will utilize to complement the building's architecture. Also, all signs will be well landscaped to further enhance the site's overall appearance and quality. And like I said earlier, the HVAC and transformer pads and stuff like that will also be screened and landscaped. And sheet number 10 is the proposed allowable uses that Elizabeth and Brick went over a little bit earlier. And I will be happy to answer any questions on any of these comments or any more on the fire hydrant.
Okay, anybody have questions?
I have questions. How many tenants do you anticipate for this building? I'm trying to understand. I know this is just a concept drawing, but I'm trying to understand how you've got it laid out.
4 or 5, something like that, 4 or 5 employees.
4 or 5 employees or 4 or 5 tenants? Because,
I'm sorry, tenants.
Yeah.
Well, just be a couple of tenants, right now.
and all the
This side.
parking's along the front?
I'm sorry?
All the parking is along the front?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just for this building here, correct. The parking's along the front, and the circles you see are for the trucks that, the equipment that they're gonna work on. Everything's gonna be worked on inside. That's why you see the way the asphalt's funny, is shaped kind of funny. They wanna be able to drive those trucks in there, and they're gonna have a crane inside there. Everything's gonna be worked on internally. They're not gonna be outside working on equipment or anything. It's all gonna be done inside that building structure.
So is that one tenant they already have secured? Because we've had a lot of
I'm sorry?
Is that one tenant they've already have secured? Because we've talked a lot about.
Well, it's them.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's their use, okay.
And, yeah.
And the other thing I had is on the speed limit. What is the speed limit on Highway 99? Do you know? Because we haven't talked about a deceleration lane.
It's 55 right through there.
55? 55.
We haven't talked about a deceleration lane, if there's any concern about that.
No, I wouldn't think this is going to be a low. I mean, a lot of times for this site, this one site plan, it's going to be something. He may be there during the week. He may be off for 6 months. It's not going to be something like a Dollar General where it's this site.
Okay.
This specific one, the site plan that I'm going to submit next month, if this goes through with his site, it's going to be a low impact, generate probably a car or two a day, if that. So it's nothing that's going to generate a lot of traffic, this one particular building.
Okay, thanks.
We actually put traffic counters out at the site. Mr. Corbett has the numbers. It's fairly low at the moment as well.
Yeah, those numbers, the numbers in your report came off of 99. There were 3 miles either direction. They show like 6,000 cars a day. We put the traffic counters out off the road that this building is actually off of, and anyway, we only show about an average of 65 cars an hour, so it's quite a bit less than the TDOT numbers that we have on there.
Okay, other questions, Rich?
I brought this up a minute ago, or I asked about the one building. It's a big lot, and trying to look at the map, the whole area, and look at the one that's got the actual building on it. What's going to happen with the rest of the property?
I'm sorry?
What's going to happen with the rest of the property if?
Well, it will bring in, if something happens and it can use that septic field, it doesn't take up a lot of the flow, and he's got a client that wants to build something, they'll build possibly next to him or over some. But they'll still have to provide everything that this booklet is saying as far as screening and setbacks and stuff like that. Or is it?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a 10,000 square foot building that could become 2 10,000s.
Well, the limiting factor to that, though, is the septic field. It's a really small, single residential family septic site. You're not going to get, if whatever they put there is not going to be a large generator of water. Whatever it is, it'll just be something with one bathroom in it. Some type of market or some retail shop, an office, something like that.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jamie. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Anyone else? We're going to close the public hearing. No one else wishes to speak? Will?
Well, Rhonda mentioned a deceleration lane or something. He said it'd only be a handful of cars a day, but if we approve this with the convenience store, that could become exponentially larger number of cars a day. And is this not the only opportunity we would have to require a deceleration lane or something like that? And if we get this zone, we can't really require that as site plan approval, I
Well,
wouldn't think.
yeah, the way our regulations are written right now, I mean, we don't have anything else in there. I mean, this would be the opportunity to do that if that is indeed what the concern is. I mean, another would be to look at the uses there and maybe if, speak to the applicant, if they're willing to remove some of those more traffic intense uses possibly. I mean, that's another idea as well. So
I don't have a problem with the building he's talking about and 3 or 4,
Jamie.
employees and a dozen trips a day or something, but At the same time, we're approving the possibility of a convenience store, and that's going to be more than that handful of cars.
Well, I agree, and I don't think they would be opposed. If something did come and it warranted and generated enough traffic to do the right turn, they'd be all for putting a deceleration lane in there. I don't think they'd be opposed to that.
Well, at this point, I mean, I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself here, but I'd feel better if we took the convenience store part out and approved this, and if they came up with a plan later on for our
Let's just
convenience
go ahead and
store,
take it.
come back through and we talk about this, acceleration lanes and everything at that
Okay.
point in time. That'd give them the opportunity to do what they're wanting to do at this time, and I'm just speaking for one member here, but that
Okay.
convenience store is a leap for
Well,
me.
they just give me the nod, the okay to go ahead and remove that one if that's going to be heartburn for y'all.
Well, one thing too, and you hit on it there, that I think make it a lot clearer here. If you've got a use for this building, you already know you're going to be back up here next month with plans.
Well,
then we really need to be approving what the use is and what.
Well,
you know, if you're building something similar to this.
What's actually the use is about everything else on this list that this place is going to do, other than the department or discount. I mean, he may do some storage. He's wanting to do the storage. He may want to sell something out of there. He's going to be working. It's going to be vehicle service inside there. It's going to be a repair shop, and it's going to be specialty machinist type work there too. So a lot of that is very similar. Fabricating metal products inside there. A lot of that stuff is going to pertains to kind of his business inside that building in the back. We tried to mold a lot of that around there, and he just wanted the option. If he built a building, we're not saying that he can't even build a building next to it with the sewer issue. Yeah. But we didn't want to limit him to, like y'all were saying earlier, to coming back here 3 or 4 times again every time he gets somebody that's potentially wanting to build there. We'd like to go ahead and, if he had it, that way he could market, I've got a spot out here if you want to put a mini storage or something like that. That's something you could put out there and wouldn't hinder the septic system.
Okay, Rhonda?
So Jamie, from that standpoint, would you rather have the department and discount store E and F on that list have both of those pulled off? Or would you rather leave them on and then say and I don't even know if we can do it this way, but should a high intensity use be proposed for that plan, then at that time, prior to construction or during construction, that the deceleration lane would be added? Would you rather keep the use and have the lane, or would you rather us not address the lane and take the uses off?
You talking about for the department or discount store?
Yeah, it would be E and F on that list, department or discount and convenience sales and service.
Yeah, I don't think they'd have a problem with that, because the retail shop will give them the flexibility of selling their stuff internally. If they wanted to sell some of their stuff out front, the retail shop, would still give them the option of selling stuff. So that's fine with us. The E and the F then.
E and F, Ron, is that what you were interested in? E and F? Okay.
Yes.
How big is the septic site there? I mean,
If
they
I don't
decide
know.
to build something else.
It's approved, and David can tell you too. It's approved for a single residential home. And if I told you the square footage, it really wouldn't mean a lot, because it depended on the type of soils. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's loam, or it didn't say on here what type of soils it could be. Loam, and it could be.
So that's the only site that they're working with.
They've only got one suitable site to use to build anything. Now, it would have to be some type of a shared type use if they even split anything, and that'd be getting into lease deals with they're all one lot and the buildings are sharing type stuff. But it's only one. It's really only set up now. We may be talking about a lot of stuff here, and it's maybe the only thing he can put on there.
Yeah,
but he still wants the option, if he gets his approved, he's got those offices out front. He could have another office where he sold retail type stuff out of there. He just wants the flexibility. But it's just a small site for a residential lot. Probably
so I was
10,000
curious,
square
like
foot.
Richie was asking earlier, if he wanted to expand with that little site, it's going to be hard.
He's not going to be able to expand much. Like I said, you may be able to put something like a mini storage, back here in the back, screen, something that doesn't use or is low impact to the septic system, not a big water usage type
Okay.
site. You're not going to put us, a restaurant or anything like here that's generating a lot of
Rhonda?
How close is city sewer to this?
way away, way far away. Yes. But, well, I can tell you how far. It's Rockville School. I think they've got sewer there. But the Dollar General that I got approved last year, it's on septic. It was right down the road. We looked at sewer in it, but it was so far away that it wasn't feasible to sewer. It crosses there at Clear Ridge subdivision and goes into the school there. That's where the sewer is actually.
Doug, I have a question. On the mini warehouse thing, if we approve this as written down here, are we automatically approving the use of mini warehouses? And if they'll have to come back and do a site plan, but
right.
How much public input could be in that then? It may be a great spot for them. It looks like it could be.
Well, at this point, he's proposing a 10,000 square foot building, but, his conditional use permit isn't necessarily limiting him to that. So if he were to, if it wasn't conditioned upon anything else, if he were to come in with a mini storage warehouse type facility, you're right, it would require site plan approval, but, it'd just be following the same protocols as all the other site plans we look at, not necessarily subject to a rezoning, public hearing, or anything like that.
Mike?
Jamie, I have one question. If the stars lined up and the site was suitable with water to build as many 10,000 square foot buildings as would allow, do you envision still only one drive access off 99, or would you have one per?
At this point, what we were trying to do is utilize that one entrance to serve the site. If we've got to come in and tee over and to do something over, I'd still like to keep that one access point. And I think I've labeled in there somewhere utilizing one access point. And they're going to have a gate out front too. When there's places closed, it's going to shut.
So if you had a mirror image building, you would ideally, particularly with the concern about the deceleration or turn lane, you could utilize all that in one entry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And like I go back to, it doesn't matter how much we could get all the water we wanted. Still, it's what's you know what I mean? It's that small septic site up there on the top.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Is anyone else? We're going to close the public hearing. Okay. What's your wishes?
Just make sure we've eliminated E and F from the site usage at this point.
E and F's eliminated, right? Okay.
That's what's the, yep.
Will? Mike? Motion to approve? Do you have a second?
With E and F both removed.
I'm sorry?
With E and F removed.
With E and F removed. Do you have a second? Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. It is approved. All right, zoning resolution amendment. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Our current regulations, and this amendment is dealing with amending our standards, dealing with recreational vehicles. Our current regulations do not allow recreational vehicles to be used as living quarters. Now, we do feel that that's an appropriate regulation, but we also realize that there are situations where this type of situation should be allowed, at least on a temporary basis. Examples of such situations could be temporary living space when someone's looking to repair their home or possibly to renovate their house, or because of a natural disaster, something to that effect. We also run into situations sometimes where people want to build a house on a tract of land, but they want to live on the property while they're building the house. Currently, our regulations do not allow that. And quite frankly, a strict interpretation of our regulations wouldn't even allow visiting friends or relatives to stay in an RV during their visit. We've been thinking about these amendments for a little bit of time now, and we've met with our codes director and codes department officials to discuss these. You'll see in your agenda packets, our current regulation states verbatim at this point, it says outdoor storage of no more than one boat and boat trailer, no more than one camping trailer or recreational vehicle per dwelling unit, provided no part of such storage area shall be located in a front yard, and provided such boat and camping trailer or vehicle shall not be used for living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes. What we're doing is proposing to make some amendments to that to address those three situations. You'll see under the proposed regulations, we say outdoor storage no more than one watercraft. We've changed that from boat, just due to the fact that there's a lot of people that have jet skis, personal watercraft, those kind of things. We feel watercraft's more of an inclusive description than just boat. And trailer for such watercraft, one utility trailer. There's a lot of people that will have just a trailer just to haul, just odds and ends things here and there. So there was really no provision for that either, so we added that in there. And then we've also kept the language, no more than one camping trailer or recreational vehicle allowed per dwelling unit. We have added something just a little different here. Parking of recreational vehicles, watercrafts, or trailers may be allowed in the front yard on a hard dustless surface like a driveway. Sometimes someone may have an RV that they park in their driveway, especially if they're in a subdivision lot. That's kind of the intent of what we had there. If they really had nowhere else to get around to the back of the house, they would at least be able to park it in their driveway. Of course, that's what we're proposing. This is all open for discussion. And then under that, you'll see where we've dealt with those three particular situations where we say usage of recreational vehicles or camping trailers for living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes will be allowed under the following circumstances. Number one deals with those situations where relatives or friends may be in to visit. Just gives you a time, basically a 14 days per visit for any calendar year, excuse me. Number two deals with situations for fire or natural disasters have occurred. We'd issue a temporary permit for 6 months with the ability to have an additional 6-month temporary use permit issued by the planning director or their designee. The unit must be served by approved water, sewer, electric facilities. The unit would have to meet all building separation standards consistent with the International Building Code. And then the last E there, we put residential use of the unit would be discontinued upon the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for the principal dwelling unit. Number three deals with situations where the owner desires to live on site when the principal residence is being constructed. The regulations are pretty much identical to number two, so I won't go through and read them all again. I will point out the one difference is letter B, where it says a building permit for the construction or renovation of the principal dwelling unit must be issued prior to a temporary use permit being issued for the living unit. The building permit must remain valid in order for the temporary use permit to remain valid. And besides that, everything else is pretty much consistent with number two. So this is something we think will strengthen our regulations in this regard, and we'll just open it up for questions at this point.
Mike?
Doug, in a subdivision situation, which you mentioned just a second ago, would a homeowners association trump this if they specifically do not allow for...
They could, in the sense that now we wouldn't be able to enforce those, obviously. As far as we're concerned, they would still be legal. But if there was a homeowners association and they had a covenant that said you cannot park those in the front yard, and there was an active homeowners and they enforced that, they could do that, and it would take precedent over our regulation.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
in that regard.
so ultimately, a homeowners association has the last say.
Yes, I think the answer to your question is yes. But again, as far as we're concerned, there would be no violation, and it would not be something that the county would be enforcing. That'd be something that they'd have to do amongst themselves.
But if the homeowner association says you could park 3, they wouldn't trump that.
That is correct. Yeah, they couldn't be any more or they couldn't be any less restrictive. They couldn't. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, they couldn't say you can park multiple. When we just say one, we'd be like, sorry, you can only have the one. So yeah.
The 14-day, do they have to call and get permission, or how do we enforce the 14 days?
Well, really,
we have to have a complaint to
basically, yeah. This wouldn't be something where we'd require people to call up to our office and say, hey, we're having a friend over in an RV. He's going to park in our front yard or our front driveway, and he's going to start on this day and leave this day.
The in-laws come for 14 days and they're still there 6 months later, and the neighbors don't have to call.
This at least gives us something to some teeth, if you will. There's a regulation there, but yeah, we'd be counting on someone calling in a complaint before we could start the clock. So.
Any other questions?
I've got one. Should we look at lot size or anything on this? I'm sitting here trying to think of how this could be used either for or against us, but I can see a lot of families with a pontoon boat and a set of jet skis, maybe 2 jet skis and 1 pontoon boat, and according to this, that would be illegal now.
Outdoor storage would not be allowed. I mean, if they had, let's say they had a pontoon boat that they kept in the garage and they kept the RVs out, or vice versa, that would still we're not saying they can't have them, we're just saying outdoor storage of them is
but
limited. So.
But the problem with that, you go to trying to store a pontoon boat or an RV indoors or inside, and we won't let them build a garage that big if their house ain't big enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's something we can look at. I mean, it's not something we looked at on the front end as far as lot size. We were trying to I mean, we just didn't. So.
Mike.
And a carport would not be indoor storage, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Technically, no, because I mean, it's still open. So.
Yeah, I don't see in here where back to what Richie said, anything about acreage. If somebody's got 7 or 8 acres, I don't have a problem with them having a boat and 2 jet skis and a motor home. Is this just a subdivided lots, or is this?
This would be for anything.
For
This would be for anyone from a subdivision lot up to somebody having 200 acres of land. So, but I mean, now currently.
The problem telling somebody's got 10 acres of land, they can't park 2 boats.
But now, understand that our current regulation doesn't make any differentiation either. I mean, if anything, we're allowing more than what's currently allowed, but just understanding that we're not trying to, we're not trying to take anything away at this point.
As long as we're looking at it, then I would like, because we're not enforcing it now, apparently. Because I know, what about like a campground? There are some campgrounds in the county that may all be within the municipalities that people are living in campers.
Mm-hmm.
I've known have been living in campers literally for years. They're not bona fide mobile homes. They're campers. Like the KOA campground down at Smyrna on Rocky Fork Road or Rock Springs. That may be within the city limits of Smyrna. I don't know, but there are people who've been living down there for years in those campers. Or is that a codes violation? I mean, I don't want to go
That's in the city of Smyrna. It's a designated campground. So
Yeah.
We have discussed also designating campgrounds in the county also. So it's something that we're working on.
But do we have to have a public hearing on this? Or?
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, we could go ahead and have a public hearing. I mean, obviously, it's on our agenda. I mean, there's really no one that we could just mail specifically about this, but I mean, it was advertised as our meeting, as part of our meeting and our agenda. So.
I would like to see something, and I hate to just throw more work on staff, but like we allow bigger buildings for how many acres you have. Up to 5 acres, you get 2,500 square foot building or something like that. And I'd like to give the guy with 5 acres a little more leniency than somebody on a 15,000 foot lot. If you've got a wooded lot out here near the county line that's 5 acres, in my opinion, you're not hurting anybody if you've got 4 boats over there, So
yeah, I mean, we'll be happy to do that.
I would like to have something in there to give a little more flexibility for which is what Richie started off with to start with.
Now, as far as this is really just for, I mean, really what we're talking about at this point is just the watercrafts, trailers, those kind of things. Did you have any other concerns about the other things that we were proposing in here as far as the 14 days and those cases where there's a fire or where someone wants to live on the property? I mean, were those limits? I mean, we didn't limit those by, or tier those by acreages. Not that I don't think that'd make much sense anyway, but just want to make sure that, I mean, if you're okay generally with the way we're going, I mean, we're more than happy to do that. But just if
I would
there's
hope
anything
we
else.
would get the paper to have some sort of story that we're going to have a public hearing on this, because we've been thinking about this for 2 minutes here, at least I have, and there may be some huge questions out there that the residents of the county would like to express that are valid concerns, and I'd like to, hopefully we can get the word out and get people to come to the public hearing and tell us what their thoughts are.
That's what we're more than happy to do that.
I think staff's intention to help people along if they've had a disaster, a fire, and put some regulations on the semi-permanent to permanent stays by relatives. I think that's good, though.
Okay, Steve.
I was going to ask David if we had any. Can you check? You probably, I don't know if you know right now or not, if you had a lot of complaints on this throughout the years, and if we did, could you pull up some kind of
that's kind of
history on that? Kind of let us know then for our next trip what kind of problem it is out there in the county.
What prompted some of this was some RVs parked. People think they're living in the backyard, things of that nature.
Right.
Off and on, we have 2 or 3 a year, probably, that call in about neighbors living in RVs in the driveway or in the backyard or extended stays. So it's something that we are constantly monitoring and taking complaints on.
What are you doing with them now? That was a good question.
there's not a lot that we can do because of the regulations doesn't cover visitation times, storage of an RV, and using it for a rec room at night for the kids to go to, things of that nature. So we're just trying to fine tune a few items that would help us, help the neighborhood to be able to have some guidelines to go by.
Doug, you said carports that wouldn't suffice. If somebody has 12, 15 acres and he has a pontoon boat, fishing boat, and 2 jet skis in there in an open tool shed type atmosphere, carport type atmosphere, that wouldn't be legal.
I don't think it would, but I mean, we can, well, everything's on the table at this point, so I mean, we can look at all
I
that. So.
think a lot of those will come out of the woodwork. You're the very one. You're the very one I was thinking about, Rich.
But we'll, like I said, we'll be more than happy to take another look at this and then see what we can come up with, and then bring it back to your consideration. So.
I mean, there's a lot of places, like you say, like this lot that Rock Vale was all wooded, and the guy's back in there. You don't even know he's back in there, but he would be in violation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point there. Good point. Good point. A lot of things we need to look at there. It's you gonna put a public hearing on it?
Yeah, at this point, we're going to be making some pretty significant changes to this, and I don't think anyone, unless Robert wants to come up and say something, he's only one here. So. So
Okay.
We'll bring it back.
Okay, bring that back. Okay, Doug, nominate committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, it's that time of year where we have our annual nomination for chair and vice chair. Of course, this kind of got delayed just a little bit due to the weather issues we had back in January. But I want to thank the nominating committee, Richie Boland, Mike Cush, and Pettis Reed, and their service to this. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Mike Cush at this point.
After hours of deliberation and nominees, just unbelievable qualified nominees, it is, I believe, that the nominating committee's recommendation that certainly we could open the floor for nominees, but our recommendation would be to keep status quo and have Craig Lynch continue to be the Planning Commission chair and Mr. Jeff Phillips as vice chair. But
Any other nominations for chair or vice chair? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, any other business?
Just a couple items. The second subcommittee, our budget committee, we are going to be having a meeting on February 22nd, which is this coming, not tomorrow, but the following Tuesday at 12 o'clock in our planning office. We will not be able to provide lunch, but if you'd like to bring lunch with you, please feel free to do so. Again, that'll be February 22nd at 12 o'clock in our office. We'll meet in our back conference room. That's for the budget committee to review the budget for for our department, planning and engineering, for the upcoming fiscal year. And just to kind of whet your appetites, after that, you will be considering the budget as the planning commission at your next meeting on the 28th. So I know that'll be something that you won't want to miss. So.
That's our morning meeting.
Yes, that'll be a 9 a.m. meeting. Yes, sir.
Doug, I was going to ask you if it's proper time right now to, how did the meeting go with CUD? I apologize, myself and Commissioner Jordan there could not make it because of our in-depth meeting at budget the other night. So, but we hated it was the same night, but I heard you had a good crowd.
Yes, we did. And actually, I'm glad you brought, that was the third thing I was going to bring up, but I'm glad that that was a good segue into this anyway. Yes, we had our meeting at Consolidated Utility. Again, I know Larry's not here, but would just like to publicly thank him again, Larry McElroy, and allowing us to use his facility. It's always a pleasure to work with him and to use his facility. It is a beautiful facility. The meeting went very well. We met about our comprehensive plan. I would say we had probably somewhere around 50, 75 people at the meeting. Very good turnout. Lots of good discussion that we had. I'm trying to remember who all was. Mike Vaught was there. I know, Craig, you were there. Pettis was there, and I believe
Richie was there.
Richie was there. Yes, I'm sorry. There was not that I was forgetting you, Richie. I promise. But a lot of good questions were asked. A lot of good conversation was had. A lot of good comments made. Concerns. Yes, there were concerns, and that kind of leads me to the item I did want to bring up as far as moving forward from here. There are a lot of issues, I think, that we need to discuss as the Planning Commission, the full commission, a lot of the items that came up and things that have been discussed even at that meeting and at the Planning Commission meeting we had back in at the end of January. So I'm kind of wanting to just kind of get your thoughts on where we want to go from here. You know, I guess kind of the thoughts we're having is probably a good idea to maybe think about a special meeting of the Planning Commission to just consider that one item. I can say right now that we are going to be having items on our next Planning Commission agenda for our plats and plans. Plus, it would give us a little extra time to advertise. We could kind of lump in a work session with a public hearing and everything, and we do need to advertise 30 days for that. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there for discussion to see what the commissioners thought about that. So,
Are you going to put out, I guess, in some form, then what all the issues are that we haven't
actually
discussed, and then we're...
Yeah, we took notes, and it probably would be a good idea is to kind of put those notes. They're in a type format right now, but get those notes out to you just to give you an idea of what was brought up. Again, nothing that we. As I recall, none of the concerns that were brought up were really anything we hadn't already heard, which, you know, I guess in one sense is good because nothing new kind of hit us. But at the same time, it just reinforced those concerns that are out there. So I think those are concerns that, and we can kind of take a look at the comments and kind of, you know, probably lump them into. They probably all fall into certain different, you know, categories, and then kind of say these are the major items that we need to consider for that meeting. So if you're okay with that, we'll go ahead and start making plans to go in that direction. Then, okay.
Next month's. This meeting next month?
Well, that or
how many you've got? You don't know what you got.
Well, at this point, I don't think do we even have anything. Not yet. Mr. Barrett. Oh, yeah. We know we have a at this point we know we have Mr. Barrett possibly coming back. You know, the one that was deferred tonight, possibly coming back next month. So, and the deadline's Friday. So, you know, we still have a few days before we know if anything else is going to come in. So, I mean, if we only had the one item, it might be possible to have the plan discussion at that time as well. But that's the only problem is that wouldn't having that public hearing. Of course, like I said, we had to advertise 30 days. That doesn't give us enough time to do the advertisement. So it might be better just to look at a special meeting. There's money in the budget for that, so I'm not too worried about that. I know that scheduling can create kind of a conflict with trying to get everybody here, but that's the other option.
Yeah, if we've got a light agenda, I'm all for just, you know, having it on the same meeting. It was just if we had, you know, 3 or 4 things that really needed discussing and working through, there wasn't no way that I don't think we could attack both of them in the same night. We might need a special meeting for it, but if we've got just 1 or 2 items, it's going to be pretty short. I think we can attack it in one.
There's a 30-day deadline for the next meeting.
Right.
Next night meeting. I mean.
Yeah. Well, the way the law reads is that a public hearing before the Planning Commission for a comprehensive plan has to be advertised at least 30 days ahead of time. Of course, our next night meeting would be March 14th. Today's February 14th. I mean, there's no way I can do it, but. Now, we have had one public hearing. It doesn't say how many you have to have or anything like that, but the changes there probably going to be some fairly significant possible changes that we're going to be looking at, and it would probably be a good idea to have another public hearing on that anyway. So, okay. No, we're not looking to extend the process any further, but at the same time, we want to make sure we do it right. So.
It's whenever you decide, I mean, you need to poll everybody because we need as many of participants. This whole audience needs to be there. If you may have to, if you even have to go into another month, We need everybody there.
Can you
for
move
that.
yeah, I'm sorry, Rich. Yeah, we could do that. Mhm. We could
Move the
look
whole
at that,
meeting
because we
from
could
one
just
week.
we could just keep the deadline the same, just move the actual meeting date, and then just, we'll look into that. That might work, because that still gives us a regular meeting, and the chair has the ability to, according to the bylaws, to move a
Change it.
meeting for,
But poll everybody here on
Yeah.
with that date, for
We'll do
sure.
that.
Mike, Jim?
Doug, walk us through, I mean, we look at the plan, we make recommendations to rework the plan, and then we forward it on to the county commission, is that correct?
Right, I mean, the first step, of course, you would vote, you vote to adopt the plan, okay? That, you do have the authority to do that according to the state law. You can then request that the county commission do the same, and then would move it forward to that level. Now, whether or not, and the timing on that, how that would work, I would have to kind of see. I don't know if it'd be like the very next month or possibly after that.
So we actually have the power to approve this
Yes.
without the county commission.
That's correct,
approval.
you do.
And I've had some public comment that, ask, are we gonna look at subdivision regs? And shouldn't these all mesh together? Maybe,
Yes.
We should maybe look at this and then look at the subdivision regs and make sure everything meshes together and send it.
Well, the subdivision regulations will be based off, and the zoning as well, will be based off the recommendations of the plan. So, and that's, I know there was some talk before about, kind of doing them all at, approving them all at one time. The only issue that, with that I see is that could be problematic is, if changes are made to the plan last minute, then you have to make changes to the zoning and changes to the subdivision regulations. Sometimes it's better to have the plan set and then be able to base everything off of that. But the subdivision regulations really are going to be dealing a lot more with process as far as the subdivision of property. The zoning is really where I think we're going to have most of our discussion. The changes that we've seen so far in the subdivision regulations are really more of a matter of the process that we're currently using, ways to refine that, to streamline that, and really just kind of clean it up. So at this point, and the subdivision regulations will stop with the planning commission as well. Those don't have to go to the county commission. You have the ability and authority to approve those. So.
Okay, well,
We talked about pushing next month's meeting back a week. Some of us just realized that is during the spring break week, and several of us in here have kids. The 21st is. If we push it back a week, and I don't know who all would be gone on trips, but it might be bad to do that during spring
Well, we'll get our calendars out tomorrow, and we'll start kind of coming up with some possible dates, and then we'll poll everybody and kind of see where you all want to go from that. I mean, I don't think we can work around that. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a Monday. We could probably do it on a Tuesday. I mean, whatever. We'll see how that goes. And of course, there's committee meetings that we have to be aware of too for the county commission. We don't want to get in the way of that either. So.
okay. Anything else, Doug?
No, that's all I had.
Dale? Veronica? Thank you. Second, Richie.